Okay then, so some extremely hot weapon balance changes to talk about today. Last night, after all the chaos with nuking Verdansk and everyone running around on the night version of Rebirth Island, Raven dropped the Season 3 patch notes. They covered pretty much everything, apart from details on the new Warzone map, which for now still has another live event happening later today. But the patch notes included so much information on weapon changes, I had to make a video and share them with you all. So buckle up, get comfy, and get ready for some of the best news we've had in months when it comes to weapon balancing in Warzone. We'll start off with the Cold War AK-47, a weapon that I really wanted to like, but the recoil pattern was just too harsh. And Raven appears to have listened to that kind of feedback because the recoil pattern has been adjusted for this gun. According to them, the recoil pattern made its downsides far more apparent than its upsides, and they've smoothed out the recoil to make it easier to control. So if you're accurate or you're skilled at recoil control, you'll now find the Cold War AK-47 to be much more effective at most ranges. This is something I said in about the 3 or 4 different Cold War AK-47 videos I've made. The recoil bounce in those first few bullets was just mental, and it made it very, very difficult to control, even on PC, where I'd say it is easier to control the recoil than on a controller. If you were using this thing with the controller, you were extremely brave, but you'll be rewarded now because the recoil pattern isn't as harsh as it was before. Moving on to the Fara 83, this was the new assault rifle introduced in Season 2 of Warzone. We've got some damage changes here. Minimum damage has been increased from 25 to 26, so you're always going to be doing a little bit more damage now, but the maximum damage has been decreased from 33 to 31, and then to compensate for that, the maximum damage range has been increased by 17%. So the amount of distance that you're going to be doing the maximum damage has been pushed out by 17%, but the amount of damage you'll be doing is slightly less than it was before, and the recoil pattern has been adjusted. Here's what Raven said. As a fast-firing AR with relatively strong recoil, we felt there was too much of an identity overlap between the Fara 83 and the FFAR. We have smoothed out its recoil and pushed out its damage profile to be a more viable mid-long range AR option. That sounds pretty good to me. Again, the Fara is another weapon I wanted to really like, but the recoil was just a bit too strong. Now that's been brought back into line, I'm definitely giving this one another go. Next on the list is the weapon that everyone wants to hear about, the FFAR. We've got quite a few changes happening to this weapon, and overall you're looking at quite a significant nerf, I think. The maximum damage has been decreased from 30 to 27. The maximum damage range has been decreased by 15%. The neck damage multiplier, I don't think we've ever heard of the neck damage multiplier before, but apparently there is one. That's been changed from 1.1 to 1, so you're always doing the minimum base damage because it's a 1 times multiplier. The upper torso damage multiplier has been changed from 1.1 to 1 as well, and the ADS speed has been decreased slightly, so you won't be able to snap into those iron sights as quickly anymore. Here's what Raven have to say. With high damage, high rate of fire, and a competitive mag size, the FFAR has enjoyed a lengthy reign of terror on the short to mid-range engagement space. When a weapon is so ruthlessly efficient that it pushes the entirety of a weapon category out of viability, it needs to be addressed. And they're talking about the SMGs. There was no need to use one when the FFAR was so dominant. The FFAR will remain a respectable option following this change, but it should now be a playstyle preference rather than a loadout necessity. That is music to my ears. If the FFAR has been significantly nerfed and people just stop using it all the time and instead they choose to use it instead of feeling like they have to use it, then that's a huge bonus for the game. The FFAR has been nerfed. Let's hope it was enough. Next on the list, the Groza. This was kind of like a sleeper weapon. I think this could have been really, really good, but it had some pretty severe downsides. And that was just that the damage range drop-off was a bit too severe for me, and the recoil pattern was a bit strange. But according to Raven, they have increased the recoil of the Groza, they have decreased the ADS speed, and the upper torso damage multiplier has been changed from 1.3 to 1.1. Now, according to Raven, this change is more of a precaution. We expect, in the absence of the FFAR, that the Groza would have risen to take its place. Whilst there will always be a meta, we want the meta to exist in a TTK range that is a bit higher than where we are currently. Again, music to my ears, a slightly longer TTK, fantastic. In that regard, we believe the Groza was a bit of an outlier that, much like the FFAR, could have been detrimental to weapon diversity. Bringing the Groza down a notch should allow for some more healthy competition in this weapon category. Honestly, reading this now, this is just like, it's a revelation to me. This is what we've wanted from Raven for the last few months, but it seems they were holding all of these changes back for Season 3 and this new map, so we can go in with a completely different experience. Then we've got the Krig 6 here. We've got some big changes to the Krig, and if you've tried to use it in Warzone, you'll know that it's felt very underpowered, and it seems Raven have noticed that, and they're giving it quite a significant buff. The head damage multiplier is being changed from 1.4 to 1.5, so if you hit shots at the head, they'll now be more dangerous. The neck damage multiplier has been changed from 1 to 1.3. That's a pretty big improvement there. So if you don't quite hit the head, but you hit the neck, and you don't hit the upper torso, that little bit right in the middle, you're now going to be doing more damage than you did before. Upper torso damage multiplier changed from 1 to 1.1, and lower torso damage from 1 to 1.1. So across the board, head, neck, upper and lower torso, the Krig is now going to be doing more damage per shot. The Krig has long been overshadowed by the All-Stars in the AR category. We believe this change will allow for a more competitive time to kill, given the shots are well placed. Again, Raven, brilliant change. Absolutely love it. I want to see the Krig rise to the top or at least become competitive, and I feel like I could actually use it in Warzone now. And then lastly for the ARs, we've got the QBZ-83. This was a very, very, very unpopular weapon. I say unpopular, it just was nowhere near as popular as all the other guns, but again, Raven has noticed that. So the movement speed has been increased, the ADS movement speed has been increased, the neck damage multiplier has been changed from 1 to 1.2, and the upper torso damage multiplier has been changed from 1 to 1.1. So overall, it seems now you're going to be able to move a lot faster with the QBZ, and you could already move quite fast with it anyway, and you'll be doing more damage to the neck and the upper torso. Here's what Raven has to say. The QBZ is a unique weapon that trades overall lethality for mobility. We aim to provide players with the tools to support a multitude of interesting playstyle options. Our goal is that with the right attachments, skillful maneuvering, and rotations will be a hallmark of the QBZ playstyle. We have also given it a much needed nudge in lethality if you can manage aiming and moving simultaneously. So it definitely does seem like the QBZ is going to become the movement king within the AR class, and it's got a bit more damage as well, so you can actually, kill people with it. Moving on from assault rifles to submachine guns next, there's only a couple of points to mention here, but I will mention them. The LC-10 is having its bullet velocity increase slightly, that's probably to make it more competitive, and the MAC-10 is having its maximum damage decreased by 1. This change will bring the MAC-10's time to kill up by about 10%, so increasing the time to kill takes it longer to kill somebody. We think this is a good place to start to encourage exploration in the SMG category. Then the tactical rifles, some big changes here. The Cold War Tactical Rifle Charlie, why they don't just call it the AUG, it is the AUG. Time between bursts has been increased by 33%, so you're now going to have to wait 33% longer before you can fire the next burst. And the neck damage multiplier has been changed from 1.8, which is frankly massive, down to 1.3. So it's losing a fair amount of its damage if you hit those neck shots. And then for the M16, time between bursts has been increased by 10%, so not as much as the AUG, but the neck damage multiplier has been changed from 1.8 to 1.1. So it sounds like now the AUG is going to be the slightly heavier of the two tactical rifles. You're going to be doing a bit more damage per shot with the AUG, and the M16 is like the lighter version because you can fire it faster, but you won't be doing as much damage. Here's what Raven has to say. The AUG and the M16 were able to reach rates of fire that allowed the wielder to negate a requisite identity pillar of burst rifles: accuracy. With their extreme rates of fire and generous burst patterns, shots were not required to be well placed. You would inherit the damage profile and range of burst rifles with minimal downside. With this change, and the change to rate of fire barrels noted below, we'll get onto those in a second, you will now need to aim deliberately if you intend to kill quickly. And, they mention right at the bottom, we are keeping a close eye on the AMAX. No king rules forever. Very interesting. Okay, let's get on to these barrel changes then. The 16.3-inch rapid-fire barrel for the M16 has had its increased rate of fire reduced by 58%, so it still increases your rate of fire, but not as much as it did before, by quite a long shot. And the same for the 18-inch rapid-fire tactical rifle Charlie barrel. It's just the AUG. The increased rate of fire has been reduced by 56%. Then for the strike team barrel on the M16, the increased rate of fire has been reduced by 66%, and then the strike team barrel on the AUG has been reduced by 64%. Then the titanium barrel on the M16, the increased rate of fire has been reduced by 61%, and the titanium on the AUG is down by 59%. So across the board, all of the barrels that increase rate of fire on the M16 and the AUG, they do still increase the rate of fire, but by nowhere near as much as they did before. We're talking like almost 60% across the board as an average. That's really going to nerf those weapons. And then we should talk about the Psychov as well, because there's a couple of attachments on the Psychov that appear to have been nerfed by Raven even after the initial nerf that came out earlier this week. If you're using the fully auto Sorokin barrel, the minimum damage has been reduced from 23 to 19, so you'll be doing less damage at a minimum, so at longer ranges. And then if you're using the auto barrel and the akimbo at the same time, the minimum damage goes from 19 all the way down to 14. And this only affects the weapon when both the auto barrel and the akimbo attachment are equipped at the same time. So Raven really going in hard on the Psychov. Here's what they had to say. The Psychov, when equipped with any permutation of the auto barrel, has been far more lethal at range than we would prefer. When secondary weapons can go toe-to-toe with, or even best a primary weapon consistently, we risk streamlining access to one of the most powerful perks in the game, and that's Ghost. While we continue to examine the impact that Ghost has on gameplay, providing easier access to it with negligible downsides is not something we want to enable. So they've gone ahead and nerfed the auto barrel and the akimbo perk on the Psychovs even more than they did earlier this week, which is great news. Now, before I end this video, I just want to read what Raven have written at the bottom of the weapon balance section, because I think it's really important to understand where they're coming from and where they might go in the future, because there's something really important written in this paragraph. Here's what they've said. We have begun the iterative process of tweaking values on attachments. We would like the diminution of weapon downside to be a build direction rather than a single attachment choice. As it stands, we feel most attachments need their values addressed in some regard to achieve this. We are hoping to make some previously non-viable options less so in the addition to widening overall build variety. This may include increasing upsides or downsides on existing attachments. We are also actively looking to how we can create more compelling choices within the confines of attachment categories, chiefly muzzles, like the monolithic and agency suppressor. Basically, what you can take from that is that Raven will be making a lot more changes in the future, and they want to change the established meta on attachments. So just take the M4 for example. Monolithic suppressor, Corvus custom marksman, commando foregrip, 60 round mags, and an optic, or the tac laser. They want to get away from just those builds being the only way you build the gun, and they want you to have some more variety so that you can actually get some different playstyles out of these guns, rather than just running them the same all the time. I'm really excited for that. I'd actually like to see what they do for that in the future. And actually, one more thing. The Rose operator. We've adjusted Rose in order to improve the operator's readability and visibility where light sources are available. Yay, the Rose skin got nerfed. Thanks very much for watching today. I'll be back later this evening streaming part 2 of the live event of the destruction of Verdansk, and likely after that live event, we'll go straight into the new map. I can see that being released pretty soon afterwards. We'll be playing some games with the lads. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll catch you all in the next one.